Welcome back to the Real Life Momz podcast. This is a place where we can take a break from all our to-dos and take time to focus on ourselves. I'm Lisa Foster, your host, and today I'm here with Kim Mosiman. She is a personal trainer, nutritionist, life coach, and author, and she is here to help us learn to love our wonderful, beautiful selves no matter what we look like. So thank you, Kim, for coming to the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you. And thank you first for sending your book to me. You have a great book out called Reflections of Joy, which we'll hit upon. But first, I just want to hear a little bit more about you. You had a transition that's so interesting because you had this career really focused around fitness, helping other people reach their fitness goals. And then what happened is like life changed, right? And midlife hits and your body changes. And now we have to kind of think differently and kind of reevaluate. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about how that played out and just kind of what that transition was like for you.
I started out, I had kids. My body wasn't the way I wanted it to be. And I went through a challenge at a gym very similar to the one I eventually opened. And it was a struggle then, but I was young, in my 30s. And my body responded very quickly, which was incredible. Cut the fitness bug and opened a gym. And it was just a really awesome place. And I achieved a level of fitness that I had not had as an adult. And everything just seemed so easy. But then sometimes I worked such long hours during the day that I didn't work out, but my pedometer would still show 12,000 steps, 15, whatever. And so I was kind of like fit by default, if you will. My job was keeping me fit. I just, I had 7 really awesome years working with people. But then my husband's job slowed down and he was going on some trips during the winter, and we live in the Midwest, so it gets very cold. And I'm here in the snow, and he's in Arizona or in Florida. And I thought, well, this isn't fair. So we made the decision to close the gym so that I could travel with him. And I feel very fortunate that I could do that. But at that moment in time, it was a huge change. The kids were in college. I didn't have a job. I wasn't coaching. And all of a sudden, I felt like this huge loss and this huge lack of purpose. And I started sleeping in and skipping workouts and maybe ordering pizza more often than I had before. And we were traveling. And so, there's always, you can eat well if you stop at a convenience store, but sometimes that's not the way you want to eat if you're on a road trip. And so, anyway, after about a year and a half, my body had changed and I wasn't feeling good about myself. And I really had become my client. I was experiencing all the same things that my clients had when I'm like, oh, you can do anything. You could do anything. Well, all of a sudden, when I was in that position, maybe it wasn't so easy.
Mm. Yeah, it's sometimes easier to be the cheerleader, the doctor, the therapist than the client or the patient, right? Like where it's really
Right.
hard to take our own advice.
It is. Yes.
And I love how you say it's like when we're younger, things fall off fast. I mean, I can walk around and get those steps in and my body like kind of can keep up. But as I get older, oh my goodness. Like I look at my body now and I'm like, ooh, mom bod. Like I have mom bod. And not only do I have mom bod, I have my mom's bod. Like I just see it.
Hmm.
I'm like, how did that happen? And it's hard to know what to do because I don't think the same things work later in
Right.
life that worked back then. And I know that's a big area that you're focusing on now. So yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
A lot of things change. There was a
Mhm.
time in my life where I could just change my diet, where I could just cut calories or cut a food group and drop a ton of weight. Not that it was the right answer, but I could do it. There was a time in my life where I could eat however I wanted, or maybe have several glasses of wine throughout the week. And as long as I exercised and I burned a lot of calories, my body would respond. As I got older, my body doesn't recover as quickly. So I've changed my exercise because I was hurting. I was trying to do things and it seemed like I was always wrapping an ace bandage around or sitting out for a period of time. Same with food. I'd cut a food group, or I'd think I'm going to fast, or I'm going to do a cleanse or some sort of juice thing. And my body didn't like it. And I feel like I just kind of got in this spiral where I was either exercising to earn my food or I was dieting because I couldn't exercise. And life was really pretty crummy. I just kind of reached the breaking point where I wasn't doing anything. And then I was journaling one morning and I flipped the page and there's some scripture at the top of the page and Song of Solomon. And it says, I'm going to paraphrase here, but you are wonderful. There is no flaw in you, essentially. And I just started to cry. That was
Mhm.
kind of like my breaking point because I had reached a point where I didn't even look in the mirror and I didn't want to go outside, but I wasn't so unhappy that I was doing anything about it. And so had a long sit down and talk with myself and just started adding some things in that made me happy. I started walking. Walking didn't hurt. And I'd walk as far as I could. And then the next day I'd walk a little farther. And I know it sounds very simplistic, but it's like I hit 50 and I just had a change of heart, I suppose. And I just decided I was no longer going to do things that didn't bring me joy or pleasure. And I wasn't going to eat food that didn't taste good. So, yeah, it was a big change for me.
And I feel like 50 for me as well, differently, but it's kind of that time period where you've been around the block long enough that like you don't want to do the things that don't make you happy. You know better that we don't
Right.
have to do those things and just suck it up anymore. So yeah, I was a big runner forever. And then I just love walking. And yeah, I'll see people do races and running and things like that. And I'm like, I love walking. Like I can walk forever. It doesn't get me out of breath. I don't
Mhm.
have to motivate myself to go do it. Like it's enjoyable. And when you enjoy something, you're going to do it, right? And so I love that picking things
Exactly.
that we like doing. Yeah, that's important. Now, I feel like there is a component of this like mindset though, right? How do we really recognize the beauty within us without what's really in front of us?
Just going to be honest, I hate that phrase. Oh, it's beautiful on the inside is on the outside, right?
Yeah.
Because we're all beautiful on the inside and the outside. For me, it started with really truly looking on the outside. And maybe I wasn't happy with my fanny, and maybe I wasn't happy with my double chin, whatever it was. But I used to run restaurants before I had the gym. We always did this thing called Wells and Betters. And there's a chapter in my book called Reflections where I really ask the reader to look at themselves because as you look in the mirror, there might be something that reminds you of your mom, right? Or something that you think, oh my gosh, I have to work on this. And we all know spot reducing doesn't really work, right? But but you can also look in the mirror and see that beautiful smile and you can see your bright eyes. And and it doesn't make your fanny any smaller. But when we look at ourselves the way others would look at us, the way our spouses or our friends or our parents, the way your mother looks at you, she looks at you and she thinks you're beautiful every time she sees you. And when you start doing that, and the more you start telling yourself those things, the more your heart starts to change and the more the inside really does learn to appreciate the good. Now, I
Mhm.
may be 50 and my body may not work the way it did when I was 30, but I can still get down on the floor and play with my grandkids.
Mhm.
And I can still work in the yard and plant a garden and do all these things. So like life's not over just because
Mhm.
it's not as good as.
I love that. Yeah. So I climb up the stairs and I'm like, I am so glad my knees still work because people struggle like
Yeah.
doing those simple things. And I'm always so glad when I'm like able to physically, like exactly like you said, go up and down, get up from the floor and not have an issue because, yeah, I see it around me with friends and family, even that it's harder. So,
Hmm.
I do love that. I didn't finish your book yet. In the process, but I do
Hmm.
love that you do point out kind of having a different perspective of looking at things. So not just saying like, I can't have, I can't do, I can't this, but what can I have? What can I do? And having that just shift in the wording and the mindset, I think that's really important.
When I ran the gym, there was a nutrition component in our challenge. So we do a 9-week challenge. People would come in, take a picture, really like try to change everything in life, take a picture at the end, and then there was a winner. And so many people focused on well, I can't have this for 9 weeks, or I can't do this for 9 weeks, or I can't go on vacation, or I can't have ice cream, or I can't have birthday cake, or whatever the case may be. Well, the fact is that for me, I can have it.
Mhm.
Right. But I can also eat the majority of my meals, protein, a fat, and a carb. It doesn't mean it has to be the same meal all the time. I'm still eating like this time of year. I live in the Midwest. This time of year, the produce is incredible. Get to eat this wonderful food. Right.
Mhm.
And I think if people open up their minds and experiment with their food and maybe play around with cooking, and just make it enjoyable. I get to go for a walk because it's gorgeous today. Somehow the Lord is shining on Iowa and it's 65 degrees in the middle of August, which is
Mhm.
unheard of, right? So, like this morning, how amazing is this? I get to walk and I'm not
Mhm.
even like sweaty, sticky, gross. It's so much a mindset. And
Yeah.
that's why I talk about crowding it out in every chapter, in every different topic, and the way I live my life. I try to look at what little bit of good I can drop in that might nudge out something that's not, it's not that it's bad, but maybe it's not going to bring on the change that I want to make today.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Mindset makes such a difference in everything we do. I like to say changing the channel when there's like a little negative thing that I'm looking at. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to change the channel just a little bit and see it in a different light because it does change things. Now, I know
it
you have
does.
some simple strategies that people can start implementing. What would you say would be these first steps to implement into your life?
Well, if we're talking about, say, your diet, I really encourage people just to take baby steps. So, in the book, I have, if you've got 1 minute, if you've got 5 minutes, if you've got 10 minutes, whatever it is. But for me, a little step might be I'm going to eat 5 vegetables today. Doesn't mean I have to eat them all in one meal or I have to do anything, but I'm going to work, or maybe I'm going to eat 20 vegetables this week, right? So I can get them whenever I want to. That doesn't sound like a little step, but I can have the vegetables, but I can still have a slice of pizza. So maybe if my diet is really crummy, I add a salad in and still have my pizza. If it's exercise and you haven't exercised in a long time, or maybe you've gained enough weight that you feel embarrassed going to the gym, right? Because that's a huge thing for some people. I have to get ready before I can go.
Mhm.
And so maybe you just start that walk. Nobody said if you're going to walk for exercise, you have to walk 10,000 steps, right? I mean, like, walk down the block and come back again. If you feel good, do it again.
Mhm.
Maybe tomorrow you walk around the block instead of just to the end of the street. I just really feel like wherever we are in life and whatever change we want to make, if we just add in a little bit of good. I studied at the Institute of Integrative Nutrition and they made a big point of saying 1% better, right? Well, just those little teeny tiny steps make all the difference. It doesn't even take very long for you to start seeing it.
And I like even in the book, I think you give the example of like if you like a glass of wine, right? You can
Mhm.
have a glass of wine, but have water after instead of that second glass of wine. I love that example of just
Yep.
making like a small little shift instead of like having to give something up.
Or one of my good friends had a huge soda problem. Not soda problem, she had a huge soda habit when she first met me, right? And I seriously drank 12 cans of soda a day. And the soda that she chose, highly caffeinated, highly sugared, right? And for her just to up and quit it, she couldn't have done it. She would have been plagued with headaches, and who knows what her body would have done because she'd had this habit for many years. So we just worked on taking out one, right?
Mhm.
We have 12 today. Well, maybe next week we pick the one, that one that you drink. Coffee's that way for me too. Like the coffee that you drink that you don't really taste because you're busy doing other things. Take out the one, celebrate the 11, right? Because it's 11, not 12. And then next week, take out another one and just keep working yourself down. And then if you have a soda, so what? But you can't beat yourself up, but you also can't, if you want to make changes in your life, you have to change something. So,
Yeah. So you do have to change. Yeah, something. So I love that example of just knocking one at a time down. I'm going to go back to a little bit of this mindset because health in general isn't just what's like right on the scale. It's really this overall mental, physical, emotional health. So for
Mhm.
people who are working on kind of changing, how do we embrace kind of our new self, especially as we're aging, or even a mom who just had a baby? Like it's different. Like how do we really get to embrace that whole mindset to be really healthy no matter what we're seeing?
So for me, the whole thing, it is emotional, it is spiritual, it's physical. I want to be the best person I can be for my husband, for my sons, for my grandsons, for my whole family, for my friends. I want to be able to engage. And so often when we feel crummy about ourselves, we isolate ourselves and we start turning down the invitations and doing things. Again, baby steps, right? But embracing for me meant calling a girlfriend and saying, "Hey, will you go for a walk? I need to exercise. I'm going to enjoy it more if I'm talking to you." And we just have to start doing the things that make us feel good. I wake up and I don't necessarily want to exercise, but I've never completed a workout and thought, oh, that was terrible.
Hmm.
I shouldn't have done it. I shouldn't have whatever. So for me, embracing it all, I don't know. I have to put myself in a positive mindset, go do it anyway. But then that positivity, it's kind of like snowball rolling down the hill, right? I mean, it just grows and grows and grows. And then pretty soon you do look in the mirror and you notice my skin looks good. I'm sleeping better. My hair looks good. And if we do the little things, the little sacrifices, and we talk kindly to ourselves, all of a sudden that whole big mindset isn't a chore anymore. But that was the hardest thing when I owned the gym because people don't remember and they don't see what I could see. So someone would come in and not feel good about themselves and they were solely focused on the scale. And if the scale didn't move, it would shoot their whole week, right? And after a couple of weeks, then all of a sudden it's not worth it. I gave up all of the fun food and I worked out really hard and I drank my water and I did all the things and the scale didn't move. But what did happen is they probably slept better and their jeans probably fit better, but they're just not noticing. And they didn't fight with their kids because they're just in a better mood all the time. So that's that. Again, that's why I just am a big fan of really looking at yourself and really looking at yourself every day. What did I do well? What could I do better? What do I love about myself? As your body gets better, your head gets better. But you got to
Yeah.
use your messed up head to force your body to do it. It just all starts in motion. And once it's going and once it's rolling, it's such a beautiful thing.
Right. It's a cycle. Like everything affects everything. Like I was just listening to some sleep studies, right? And people who are in pain apparently have poor sleep. However, sleep can actually reduce pain just by getting the rest and replenishment that you need. But it's like this cycle. So if you can sleep, then your pain is less. If your pain is less, then you sleep better, right? It just keeps going
Yep.
around in like a circle, similarly to what you're saying. And yeah, you don't feel good to actually have the mindset to maybe go to that gym or go for a walk. But if you did it, then you would feel better to have the
Yep.
mindset to then do, it's like this, it just grows on, right, snowballs on each other. So that makes so much sense. And I think we also forget about the bigger picture, right? What's
Mhm.
happening to our blood pressure and our heart, especially as we're aging, right? The skin can tell us a
Yep.
lot. Like if our skin is starting to clear up, that's an organ that's actually improving. So things that we
Hmm.
can't see, right? How much is that improving? Even if the scale it hasn't moved at all, like we may have increased our lifespan by
Right.
a week, a month, a year, or two, who knows? Or
Hmm.
at least our quality of life too, like that we can get up and down from the floor. So yeah, so it's
Yep.
it's so much more than what we're seeing. And I think that shift in the mindset of yes, making ourselves look better, great, that's a bonus.
Hmm.
However, making ourselves mentally, physically, emotionally healthier is probably really the win in this situation.
And it happens so quickly. The one example that I would offer you is, well, two. I'll give you two. I had an 80-year-old woman come and join my program. And this lady was pretty spunky and spry, and she thought, I'm going to do this. But she took several blood pressure medicines. And after just 3 weeks of focusing a little bit on her food because she hadn't been eating much and she started really trying to eat more balanced meals. And then she was moving her body every day. And 3 weeks into class, all of a sudden I caught her and she's kind of doing one of these dizzy things, you know? Well, we had a cuff there. Her blood pressure was so much better. And it was so low because she was actually over medicated. In just 3 weeks' time, she
Yeah.
had improved that much. The other example I would give is we'd have people come in who had started on medication or were on watch for diabetes. And in a very short period of time, 4 or 5 weeks of regular exercise and 80, 90% clean food, like not processed food, home cooked food. And I had 3 different people go off their medicines with the permission of their doctor. They were checking things, but our bodies are incredible machines. And if we can force ourselves for a short window of time, that snowball starts. And when it starts, and all of a sudden the medicines are going away and you're sleeping better and all your numbers are better and you know that you're making yourself healthy in every way, that's a huge motivator. And once you catch the bug and once you really start feeling better, especially at our age when we've had the opportunity maybe to feel crummy for a little
Hmm.
bit of time,
Yeah.
it's a win. It's a win.
I mean, it honestly is the best win, getting your actual health back without the image of it, because even
Yep.
my husband, he struggles all the time with wanting to lose weight, whatever, bouncing back and forth. However, he made some lifestyle changes to decrease gluten, decrease dairy. Apparently, he's allergic to them. So that's a whole other story. However, he doesn't have the joint pain that he was having. And then when he goes back on, because he falls off the wagon, right? He's like, oh
Mhm.
my God, not only is in pain, but pain equals like moodiness. You don't show up in
Yep.
a way that you really want to. It changes your personality. And it's funny how you say those things happen quickly because you think about like trying to get into shape as someone who's maybe middle age and your body just isn't changing as fast as you were when you're 20s. But those inside things are changing
Mhm.
almost just as quickly as when you were younger. So it does affect the blood pressure and just how you're feeling inside. So it is so important because I guess anyone who's going through maybe some of this right now to know that really reflect back on how you actually physically, emotionally feel, because that is also a change, not just the number.
Yep, absolutely. Your brain is your inside too. And in a world where we live with so much anxiety and depression and feelings of shame, like you were talking about your husband, like, so he knows he feels good without the gluten and the dairy. And he knows that there's a physiological reason for that. But yet he's human, so sometimes he's going to eat those things and then he feels crummy physically. But then when his mood changes, then he starts beating himself up because he's like, well, gosh darn it, I know what the problem is. Why can't I just be strong?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I think it's important when we have those allergies or when we're trying to take things out of our life that we try to substitute something that is equally pleasurable for us. And I have some issues with dairy as well. And some of my favorite things, dairy, but I've just had to try different things that bring me pleasure. But it's just the whole roller coaster. Once your body starts feeling better and you get off of some medications and you're able to do things, even if it just means walking around the block or maybe like accomplishing a whole 5K, whether you walk it or you run it or whatever, that's a huge achievement. And so then psychologically, you're thinking, oh, I can do good things and I can do
Mm-hmm.
hard things. And I think it should keep people moving forward.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your book and also where listeners can find you.
Reflections of Joy, Learning to Love the Woman You See While Becoming the One You're Meant to Be, started out as a how-to book. I thought when I closed the gym, I would write a manual and I would continue to help the world do the good things we did when we had the gym. And then this thing happened with me and I kind of fell out of sorts and I had to find a way back to good health and feeling good about myself. And so I just wrote a book about my journey back to loving myself again and all the different things that brought me joy again. And it's not just food and it's not just exercise. It's my faith and it's habits and it's getting out in community again and really trying some fun things, experimenting. So I ran restaurants for a period of life. I ran a gym for a period of life. And now I'm an author, and I'm a first-time author at 57. And I think it's important to continue to grow and explore and do the things. And so that's where Reflections of Joy came. And it's available everywhere books are sold online. And I blog and I coach, and that's all. I'm all things Kim Mosiman. So it's kimmosman.com and Kim Mosiman on Facebook and Kim Mosiman on Instagram. One, because I'm 57 and it's too hard to keep track of all the different accounts. So I'm just Kim.
That's perfect. It's consistent. People will know where to
Yeah.
find you. What do you want to tell a mom that might be looking at themselves in the mirror and not fully embracing their beauty?
I would tell her that she's worth the effort.
Mm.
And I know that when your kids are home, it's hard. It's hard to find the time. And sometimes I had to sneak it in at 5 o'clock in the morning because my boy's schedule demanded something different of me. But you're worth the time and you're worth the effort. And life is so good when you take care of yourself. And that, it doesn't mean you have to look a certain way, but it's really cool when you can feel a certain way. And that's strong and beautiful and worthy and happy. And so I would encourage moms everywhere to find those nuggets of time. 5 minutes, take a walk, 10 minutes, meditate, hide in the bathroom so the kids can't find you, just to like take some deep breaths and give yourself some sort of love in those crazy moments. They're all worth it, right? I mean, they're all worth it. But sometimes you get stuck in the middle and you're taking care of everybody but yourself. And it's hard to keep going like that.
Mm. And just
Mhm.
going back to doing that, like just one thing. If maybe you can't do it every day, but maybe you start with one day and then you can add in more days that you can do it
Yeah.
and just add a little bit at a time so that it doesn't seem so overwhelming. And I think part of us also sometimes we feel like we failed if we didn't meet that goal of ours to walk every
Right.
day.
I took advantage when my kids were young, or even when they were in middle school, and I had to I had to go pick them up. I'd just go a little bit early and grab a girlfriend and walk around the football field. It's so much easier when you latch onto a friend or another mom that's doing what you're doing. But so many of us are so tired that we'd rather grab a cup of coffee and sometimes a glass of wine and sit and chat than move our bodies. And
Mm.
I would just say, once a week, at least once a week, try to do that thing that's good for your body.
Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
thank you, Kim, for coming on the show and chatting with us and sharing just your story and just some of your insights that you've learned along the way.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode. If you want to learn more about Kim and her book, Reflections of Joy, just click on the link in the show notes. And Real Life Moms will be back with new episodes in 2 weeks. We will be starting season 7 with more amazing moms to help guide us along in prioritizing time for ourselves. So take the next 2 weeks to catch up on some of those old episodes you missed. And we will see you back for season 7 starting September 3rd.